Hi, Tom. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Great, great. Well, I want to introduce you to everyone. I know many of the people watching already know you, but not everyone does because we have participants from all over the country and even the world now. So, folks, this is Tom Alderman. I have known Tom since 1992 when I came to Roswell United Methodist Church as director of music. And I also brought the Michael O'Neill Singers with me, which was just about 3 years old at that time. And so, anyway, Tom was already at Roswell United Methodist. He had come to the church in 1987, I think it was, Tom, as organist and music associate. And then when I came in 1992, we started working together. We've been friends and colleagues uh, all of those years, and he has played, was principal accompanist for the Michael O'Neill Singers for many years. But even before you became the principal accompanist, you would accompany us in things when we would use organ
Right.
accompaniment. But speaking of organ, that's what I want you to talk about for a moment. When you came to RUMC in 1987, I think one of the reasons they brought you there was because they wanted not only one of the finest organists in the Southeast to come to the church, but they were also getting ready to build a new organ for a new sanctuary, and they wanted your expertise with that. Tell us a little about that, Tom.
Well, that was a very remarkable time to be coming to any church, and especially here at Roswell Methodist. I had heard the rumors of the new sanctuary in the works, and a few people started dropping hints that, hey, they're taking applications. You ought to send your resume. So it was an exciting time to step on board, and evidently it must have been um, in the tea leaves, or as we say, it was in God's will for me to make the move to Roswell because it was just wonderful. When I came in 1987, we were still about 4 months away from groundbreaking. They had not even cleared the property for the sanctuary. But they showed me the plans for the organ. The organ committee had already gone all over to the United States, listened to organs everywhere, and dealt with three or four of the biggest organ manufacturers. And they had already decided on the Moeller Company in Hagerstown, Maryland, to be the builders to get the contract. I'm glad they had made that decision because I'm not sure what influence I might have thrown in had they asked my opinion on the builders. Glad I didn't have to do that. But I asked if I could have a look at the organ that had been designed by the company and by the previous organist. And I took one look at it and really did not like what I saw. It just didn't fit my musical personality, nor did I think it was the right instrument for the music that I understood Roswell Methodist would be doing. So I thought either I can be nice and just smile and put up with it for years and keep my complaints to myself, or I can make a phone call. So I picked up the phone and called the president of the organ company, Ron Ellis, a dear gentleman up in Maryland, and said, Ron, I got a few problems with the organ. How much time do I have to make some changes? He said, you can make all the changes you want until we start production, and that's 3 months away. The only thing you cannot change is the price tag because that has been agreed upon. So I said, well, I'll be sending you some stuff next week. Well, I threw it out and started all over. And he called me on the phone a week later, and I thought, oh, here it comes. And he said, Tom, I like where you're going with this. So we were best friends from then on. And it went in a different direction, but I think in a very good direction. Everybody at Moeller got on board with it. It was a change for them as well. But it turned out to be what I think the church needed, and it certainly fit my personality more than what we had prior. So it was mine from day one.
Mm. And what's the size of the instrument? How many ranks? How many pipes?
Well, when it was brand new, it was 92 ranks, 5,198 pipes. And I've lost count of the pipes in the years. I've added 6 or 7 ranks to it over the years when I would find a sound that was missing on the organ, or I thought some other sound would fit better. I was able to work with some of the organ guys in Atlanta, and in some cases add, or some cases swap the pipes with some that actually worked better. So it wasn't always an addition. Sometimes it was a swap thing. But ended up 94 ranks. And recently, thanks to a wonderful gift from Doug and Mary Alice Cronz, who passed away a year or so ago, they were always big supporters of the music and especially the organ. Mary Alice's father had been an organist. So they left some foundation money to support the maintenance of the organ and provide a little latitude for some additions. And I've been able to up the ranks to 122. So most of what I've added are orchestral sounds, add additional string stops, English horns, French horns, tubas, stuff that the original classically designed organ didn't have. So it is even better for accompanying orchestral works now than it ever was before.
Oh, that's fantastic. And it is an amazing organ. And in fact, let's take a moment or two to hear a little something from the organ. Here's just a little minute or so, a sample of you playing. I think it was a rehearsal one day for something that you were going to be doing with the Michael O'Neill Singers. We were doing a concert that included I Was Glad, the coronation anthem that was done by C.H.H. Perry, English composer, wrote it in 1902 for Edward VII's coronation. And I think you were practicing just the beginning of it, the introduction to I Was Glad. So it shows off a little of the sound, and also the way it is photographed there, it shows the pipes as well. So let's listen to that for a minute. That's amazing, Tom. What a sound you can get out of that instrument. It just made me feel as if I'm in an English cathedral when you play that.
Truly is music fit for a king.
It is indeed, isn't it? And I think that's it was on that concert.
That's
We've
right.
maybe done it another time or two, but that's
Yeah.
probably what it was being prepared for. Music fit for a king. Well, we're doing this time on MOS Online, a program called Choral Classics, Music to Inspire. And a number of the pieces that we are doing will be utilizing orchestra accompaniment, and we'll be singing to those in session 6, past performances by MOS with orchestra, but several of the pieces will be with organ, with you playing in those performances. And in those cases, these were originally meant for orchestral accompaniment, and then you transcribed them for organ, keeping trying to capture the essence of the orchestral sound in an organ transcription, but certainly not trying to replicate the sound, not trying to make a clarinet actually sound like a clarinet or that sort of thing. But I've always been impressed with your ability to register things to where it complements the music so well. I mean, the pieces that you'll be playing in Choral Classics on the organ are Bach's Dona Nobis Pacem, Handel's Hallelujah Amen, Beethoven's Hallelujah, Bach's Jesu Joy of Man's Desiring, and Orff's O Fortuna from Carmina Burana. Now that's a variety of orchestral sounds. You know, the O Fortuna from Carmina Burana has a very different orchestra sound than say the Dona Nobis Pacem from Bach's B minor Mass. So how do you go about that, Tom, to decide how you're going to register? Because I think that's one of your great gifts. I haven't heard many organists who are able to do it with the mastery that you have.
Well, thank you. First thing I've learned is to think outside the box and don't worry about rules because you break them all. But like for instance, the O Fortuna, I do a lot of listening. I'll listen to see what makes the original accompaniment work. And in that case, there's this constant string agitated yata da 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 going all through there. But there's also the percussiveness of piano, and there is the timpani. Fortunately, through the miracle of MIDI, I can put both piano and timpani on the organ along with the strings. So that really captures almost all of the sound that Orff had in mind. So that once I got that balance down, it was really fairly simple, and I liked what I heard. So I think the biggest challenge, one of the biggest challenges I've had here was when MOS did all four movements of Randall Thompson's Testament of Freedom, which was written for, it wasn't orchestra, it was wind symphony, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Concert wind
More
band.
of a band sound. Yeah.
Very challenging to put that to the organ, and especially the middle two movements, which are not done that often. I remember taking the recording out to the sanctuary. I thought it was going to take an hour or two to go through and figure out how to make that work on the organ. And I would listen to four measures and then the sound would change. So I had to take those four measures, register it completely, write it down, remember the setting on the organ, then go to the next four measures and do the same. It was like a week of 10 hours a day going through those two movements, listening and then thinking, all right, what on this organ makes that sound? And then figuring out where to play it. Sometimes I would have to play an octave lower, sometimes an octave higher to get the sound where it was supposed to be. So that was an ultimate challenge. And then I got the privilege of taking it to Spivey Hall. We did I was at ACDA community concert at Spivey doing the same work on that wonderful organ there. Although I will say, as great as that Rafati is, it did not do that work as well as our Moeller did. But I'm prejudiced. But that's the type of work you have to do. You have to use your ear and translate it to what you know the organ can do.
Wow. It's amazing. You have always amazed me, Tom. I mean, after all of these years, I still sit in awe when I hear you play and what you were able to do. And I'll tell you, another thing that has always impressed me about you is your ability to memorize. I'm going to tell a quick story here, and then I want you to comment on it. When I first came to Roswell UMC in 1992, as I mentioned, and brought the Michael O'Neill Singers with me. Our first season in Roswell was that 92-93 season. And in 1993, while you were not the principal accompanist for MOS at that time, as I mentioned earlier, I would always ask you if we were doing something with organ, ask you to play. And so we did a concert in, I think it was March of 1993, of the Fauré Requiem and the Duraflé Requiem. And of course, we're doing in our program now, Choral Classics, we're doing the Introit and Kyrie from Duraflé Requiem. Beautiful, beautiful music. But we didn't use orchestra in that performance. We did it with organ. And the organ transcription for the Duraflé Requiem is very involved because it's more than just the organ part that is in the orchestral version, because it has to cover everything. And I think it was even done by Madame Duraflé's wife, wrote that. So anyway, the Duraflé is, it's 40 minutes or so in length. And I think it was the day or so after the concert that you had played and MOS had sung, and you were in the sanctuary practicing something, and I walked in and I just mentioned to you, I was talking about the concert and how happy I was. It was the first big thing that we had done together and with MOS. And I said, what a beautiful job you did. And you were always very unassuming about the things you would say. You never wore your talent on your sleeve, never have. But you said, well, you know, I, it was what bothered me was I had to turn pages all the way through the Duraflay. I probably should have just done it from memory, and so I wouldn't have had to have turned the pages. And I said, Tom, because I didn't know you that well. I said, Tom, it's 40 minutes long. You're talking about you could have played the Duraflay Requiem from memory, and you sort of looked and said, well, I think so. Let's see. And so you just started playing the Duraflay Requiem from memory. And I was just standing there saying, what in the world is this man doing? How is he doing this? And I think you stopped maybe at about the fourth movement or something like that and said, well, yeah, I've obviously got it. It would have been much easier if I'd just done that and not had the pages to turn. So I said, well, how in the world do you do that, Tom? Do you have a picture in your mind, a photograph of the page? And you explain to me how you memorize. Tell us now how you do
Well,
that.
in that case, that was a very, very difficult score for me. I had never played the Requiem. And as we discussed at the time, it was 40 minutes of straight, solid music, and there was not an easy page in the 40 minutes. Even the soft last movement in Paradisum was a complex mirage of chords that the fingers could not even reach. And I always wondered as I was playing how far off I've gotten. And it was a miracle the night of the concert. I was so surprised when I looked down and actually had the correct last chord under my fingers. So no, that piece was a stretch for me. And so it was a surprise that day for me to even realize that I had memorized. But as I work on stuff doesn't come, notes don't come as easily for me as some people might think they should. Sometimes church members will catch me practicing and they'll say, oh, you don't have to practice, do you? I want to go, oh, you just don't know. But something like the Duraflay Requiem, and then the following year, Mendelssohn's Elijah from cover to cover, takes an amazing amount of note work. And by the time I have worked those notes into my fingers, it's more a matter of muscle memory. And I do have a good ear. I was playing by ear at age 3. So I know what it's supposed to, if I know what it's supposed to sound like, then I'm halfway there. And then add some good muscle memory, which comes from hours and hours of repeated practicing. And it was a surprise for me that I had never tried to play a measure of the Duraflay Requiem from memory. But the concert was over, the nerves were gone. It was just relaxed time. So let's see how this goes. So there it was. I didn't know. Yeah.
Well, it was, I remember it as if it were yesterday, and 1993 was not yesterday.
No, it was.
But I remember how impressed I was at the time, and I've continued to be impressed with all that you do. You know what, in your long career, Tom, you're bound to have some musical memories that are memorable to you, things that you have played or associations that you have had with other musicians. Tell us about one or two or several.
Well, my work with the Michael O'Neill Singers encompasses a lot of what I consider mountaintop experiences. Most recently, the Brahms Requiem. That was an ultimate challenge for me. And we used an organ reduction or an organ transcription that had just been released by a British publisher. But as I went through it and started working on it, I found it was too simple. It was boiled down, I think, a little too simply. There were parts missing that I thought were vital to the rhythm and to the essence. They made it sound too much like it's an organ accompaniment. And the Brahms Requiem is not. It's an orchestral accompaniment, and it needs that added layer of texture that was missing from this organ transcription. So I had to redo the entire transcription, and made it harder for me because there were a lot more notes in my version than there was in that version. But that was a wonderful challenge, and one that I hope I met with the Brahms Requiem. Years ago, we also did the Andrew Lloyd Webber Requiem, and that was something I only had a piano score for. I ended up transcribing the entire piano score of the Andrew Lloyd Webber, and that was very much a challenge on that one. I think one of the big highlights here at the church was just an incident that happened one Sunday, and you were involved. You were sitting next to me when all this went by. We had a marvelous guest minister that Sunday, Lloyd Ogilvie, who was senior minister at Hollywood Presbyterian and also the chaplain of the United States Senate. He was our guest minister, and his sermon topic was, "Can you hear the pipes?" And he kept telling stories of cases where over the years, through the history, people would hear pipes from the bagpipes at various times, and it would lead them from danger or lead them to victory. I remember he was doing a whole set about the British and the Indian conflicts, and some of the British soldiers had been captured or were about to give up, but they heard over the hills the Scottish pipes of the infantry, and so they held on to the last minute. And so he kept ending each little story with, "Can you hear the pipes? Can you hear the pipe?" And I thought, oh gosh, wouldn't that be neat if I could pick up on this for the last hymn? I wonder what the last hymn is. And I looked at the bulletin, and it was Amazing Grace. I thought, well, if it can't play the pipes, what can't? So I nudged Michael, and I said, Michael, I whispered, I said, dare I try to start this last hymn with the bagpipes? And he went, yes. So as soon as he went to the prayer, I jumped to the organ bench, and he said, we'll now sing our final hymn. And I started it with the bagpipe sound, which on our Moeller is exactly the sound of real bagpipes. And many people commented that the look on his face told it all.
Oh, yes. I remember that, Tom. That was a magical moment. It
It
really
was.
was. And it was one of so many. Well, Tom, thank you for sharing with us today. It's such a pleasure. And although you decided about a year or so ago to step down from your role as principal accompanist for Michael O'Neill Singers. And of course, Alan Baston is doing that for us now. And he'd been associated with MOS for many years, even before that. And also playing when we would have four piano things, or you on organ and Alan would be on piano. But I think you wanted to have a little more time for your work at the church with a new music director coming in, and also, but you're still involved with MOS. And of course, anytime we do anything with organ, you're our go-to person. So we're looking forward to the day, hopefully not too far from now, when we will be meeting in person again and planning things with organ. And so we look forward to working with you for many years to come. Thank you for being with us
And
today.
thank you.
All right. See you soon.